News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We're up in all of those places because, as you may have just been, ever so slightly inundated with, there's a lot of things that can happen with these social media platforms, and we want to be out there in all the ways that we can, regardless of the situation, the administration, the ownership, so to speak, and that's something we'll talk about here today. Don't worry, because kind of hard to ignore these days, but we'll be talking about that and a whole lot more. But the point is that you can get on us, see the show, comment, and interact a little bit better over on those social media platforms. So if that's your thing, again, if you're able to do so, because if you are in a vehicle that you are currently driving, please don't be on those, or have your passenger do it if they can. I mean, just stay safe. None of this stuff is, well, at least in this capacity, life-threatening, even if some of the stuff we talk about might be. We get in some serious stuff and some lighter stuff and just some important stuff overall, usually, anyway. So, I mean, again, if you're going to be along with us, you're more than welcome to do so, but we're going to be out in all those important ways as well, on air, online, live streaming. And even if you are just going to be us through the app nowadays, don't forget about, you may have heard just that promo right there, the talkback feature, the way you can leave us a message, just as a gentle reminder. We're going to hear those, might not be able to hear them immediately. So if you're, let's just say, shouting at us about something someone just said and dropping expletives, the purpose of that is to go on the radio. So just know that if you're putting your own, showing your whole posterior there, Anyway, again, a lot of ways to get at us here. So a lot of topics, a lot of important things. I feel like always coming out of the weekends, we've almost got a backlog of stuff we have to get to, because no, the news doesn't stop on the weekends, even if we're not on air, but there's always just a whole lot more coming out right at the start of the week. And among other things, yes, the Twitter sale, and we're probably going to get into that here in a little bit, because of course we're on these platforms. So among other things, it will affect our show, as billionaire Tesla, SpaceX owner Elon Musk is, well, looking at the purchase and supposed opening up of that statement. John Browston actually with a interesting point there, that a big fight coming between Twitter and Trump's Truth Network, or what's the actual right way to put that there? I'll have to look that up here in a second here, because, that's some potential interesting situations there. We'll get to that here in a bit. But even more locally, as we are looking at Truth Social, there we go. I mean, all of this kind of stuff here swirling around, but locally speaking, very locally, we're looking at some very interesting implications coming out, as reported by our news partners and other concerns in town, about what might be happening with the end of Title 42, both preparation in town, but then also how some of the things going on already may not have been going that well, including some interesting reporting out from El Paso Matters today. Just the title of it here: ICE spent more than $9 million on unused El Paso hotel beds for detained migrants here. Specifically showing a picture of in the article of one such, Best Western specifically, that was used to house them, but that there was a no-bid contract for $87 million to a specific organization, Endeavors, that had a lack of experience providing the services for which it was contracted. So how that might be causing further issues as we look at these changing in policies, but also more broadly on just how Title 42 might be getting dealt with in this region here, as reported on also by the Puente News Collaborative here. So a lot of stuff going on in around the area. Again, comments over on the social media if that's your bag and you want to get at us on there. then a lot of more topics. So again, the other ways you can leave us messages are, again, that talkback feature, which just here at the start of the program, going to pop up briefly. Again, if you're tuned into the station specifically, you can see those red buttons. You got both your play and stop button there that controls the actual playback of the station, but then also that little red button with the microphone on it, that's the talkback feature. At least one person seems to have gotten it. But if you're on the app and you're listening to the station, that's where it'll get to us. Just make sure you're on the right station. So if you're hearing me right now, yes, you're in the right place. But if you're on 690 in general, we'll also get the message from other points in the day. So it still works out that way. So that is one view of it. But if you need to see it another way here, if you're just on the, that's if you're just searching at the page, and then if you're specifically on the page for the station, that's it'll pop up, and the little red button will show up at the bottom of the app. Your slight iOS and Android versions may differ slightly in the way it shows up, but just look for that microphone button and hit it and hold it, and you can leave us a message here. Just know that it's not a like real-time response thing. You're leaving us a message for later. Think about it that way here. And will, of course, open up those phone calls a little bit later in the program here because, well, it's important to do so, as we will keep doing so because, sure, phone calls, we don't think they're boring, even if some may consider it here. So, couple of things top of mind here with those property taxes here. Some interesting analysis further by Robert Moore has been doing an interesting bit of analysis throughout this whole process on it, of course, being the editor of over at El Paso Matters, and just kind of personally, if you're following him on his various social media. And some of the things he's talking about are that, yes, the property taxes could go up off of this, the amount you pay in property taxes, but that's not necessarily guaranteed because, sure, the valuations have gone up, but the ultimate decision does end up, well, resting with lawmakers or local elected officials more specifically, because sure, lawmakers, there are a couple of things, including those early voting having started today. Almost forgot to talk about that. Shame on me. Because, yeah, that will be a couple of things in this uniform and constitutional election that is going on again, starting as of today. So epcountyvotes.com is the place to check out for that. There will be a couple of things potentially affecting how some property taxes or property tax rates are going to be assigned here. Ultimately, it falls down to the many different individual taxing entities that will be going through this. So even if your property has gone up 100%, if the rate then is sent commensurate to then keep it low by your taxing entity, I'm not saying that keeping it the same is necessarily great for a whole lot of people, but it doesn't even matter as much as the rate as long as the taxing entity, again, when I say that, I'm talking about the city, the county, some corridors, but also beyond that, of course, the school districts, just that slight little thing that they do. So, I mean, those are a couple of the major areas that you're going to be wanting to look at. And if you're wondering to getting involved and who's going to be setting your rates, I know we had some questions on that last week. It really would be beneficial to you to figure out who exactly covers your area, because you could be in one of many different school districts, different coverage of the city, the county, some of these, again, special districts when it comes to, again, your water utilities or even emergency services. So would pay to be informed on it, and a good place to start that, again, El Paso, epcountyvotes.com, because you can figure out exactly your districting by searching it up on the page there. But so the point is that, again, the rates aren't necessarily guaranteed to go up, though given past experience and forming future decisions kind of thing, we wouldn't be too well blamed for expecting that the increase in your property valuation means you're probably going to be getting paid more. But more specifically, the way El Paso Matters putting it out here is that, well, sure, there are some laws, and again, those new ones going to be voted on potentially here are the constitutional amendments that would change things like the homestead exemptions and the taxing formulas, particularly for school districts. Property taxes will probably fall the brunt of it on, well, renters, because the valuation letters that be going out to homeowners, renters don't get that. And as happens with, well, just about any other category of price increase, it usually gets passed along to the consumer, in this case, well, the renters. So that there will probably be, we've been talking a little bit about, sure, home prices going up, but what interjected here and there with the idea of how much home rental or even just property rental prices in general, be it apartments, etc., in town have been reaching pretty highs, like not quite $1,000, but within spitting distance for sure. And this will probably, well, cause it to go up even further, is one of the real concerns coming out of these property valuations. So in sum total of this issue is that looking at what the taxing entities, again, your school districts, your city, your county, your special districts, are going to be where the rubber really hits the road on this issue. Because, again, you can do your own contestation of the values, though I've got to wonder, anyone with a rental property out there, if they're really that interested in doing so, because, well, among other things, it means that the rates that you are charging in turn can go up along with it. So, without any evidence to back this up, my assumption is that this is probably going to be something much less contested. Again, in this category of property, or I guess we should say habitation more accurately, that the rental's probably not going to be as much, though if your mileage is varying on that, be very curious to hear from you as we do a little bit later. That's going to take us through this first break already. So we've been talking about some of the local stuff. We got more local, of course, to discuss here, including, of course, what the heck is going to be going on around Title 42, just some and yes, that other topic, as Flaco Jimenez bringing up here, reading that's official, Elon owns Twitter, the deal in process. But this is why we put it as Elon breaks some of the internet, because people have just been going absolutely bonkers over this today. We'll certainly get into that and all the other topics that affect us here in the borderland, because yeah, that one's going to have effect, if only on, well, most directly this show in the way we put it out in some ways, but also a few other ways in the way public discourse happens. So significant enough in its own way. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, comments over on the socials. Flaco Jimenez also dropping that like. We do appreciate it over on the Facebook page. And then we'll open up those calls a little bit later in the program. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a minute. With this beautiful spring weather we've been doing, I've been spending a little bit more time outdoors lately, and something I actually really like to do is, of course, cooking outdoors. I got the grill fired up and doing all that kind of fun stuff with it, but you don't want to just stick with the same old recipes, of course, here. So something that you can do to help spice up your life and really get those good flavors going is by going to your local source for over 40 flavored olive oils, balsamic vinegars, and extra virgin olive oils, enhanced flavors. They've got this one variety, this Tunisian Kamali roasted Chile spicy pure olive oil, and it really kicks things up a notch. Put it into your favorite marinades, put it into really whatever you're cooking that you want that real extra kick for. And you can find them out in the community here because, of course, they've got olive oils imported from places like Tunisia, also Italy, Greece, and Spain, but all their balsamic vinegar is imported straight from the Modena province of Italy. Otherwise, it doesn't count as balsamic vinegar, and you can find them out in a variety of ways in the community. Try them for yourself, including out at the Upper Valley Arts and Farmers Market on Sundays. That happens right there at the crossroads near Donovan and Mesa. But also, they're going to be out at, well,
$1,000 straight to you.
That is awesome.
Listen every hour from 9 through 5 weekdays for your chance to win.
A brand in your hand is brought to you by Approved Auto. Ride out in your new ride in less than an hour. Get payments as low as $159 a month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you got your license and you got a job, they smell a deal. The deals are sweeter at Approved Auto, 8498 Alameda.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Finding a great hire can be a challenge. That's why there's Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
New on Curiosity Stream. Can we prevent cancer? Explore how our diets, lifestyle, environments, and even technology can possibly prevent this deadly disease on how not to get cancer. And the Boston Marathon. From glory to tragedy to rebirth. The long-distance race by which all others are measured. Narrated by Matt Damon, it's the trailblazing documentary, Boston. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Hand me that nail gun.
Here you go. And here's the fries.
Lunch. Who's hungry?
You know, maybe instead of loading up a nail gun with French fries to feed the crew, we should just order lunch through Easy Cater. Food from all our favorite restaurants.
My bad.
On time and as ordered.
Delicious. Huh. Load up the hot dogs while I think about it.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but Easy Cater just does. Food for work on time and as ordered from over 85,000 restaurants. Order 24/7 at easycater.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Again, even if you're tuned in on air and online, we'll get to those phone lines here in just a bit, opening up end of next segment, as we usually do. But of course, we've also got the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on most of those. A lot of comments coming in on all these situations we're discussing today. RJJ, technically, over on YouTube, but on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Maria Coleman, John Brazelton, Flaco Jimenez, among others here. Also dropping those likes, Monica Cervantes and Flaco Jimenez. We do appreciate it. It helps with the algorithm stuff, which we certainly have to think about. Yes, we're probably going to get to that Twitter stuff here in a bit, but keeping it local, at least for the start of the show here. Among other things, we've also got those new city council districting or redistricting maps probably coming up this week. Again, according to El Paso Matters, that vote expected here shortly, early part of this week, that we're going to potentially change who you're going to be voting for, even in these upcoming elections. So might be worth paying attention to, and we'll, of course, talk more about that. I mean, there are just some out-of-whack districts in El Paso, essentially, not exactly, but in general, that some of the centralized districts lost population and some of the districts on the outskirts boomed in population. So that's not the whole, but that's kind of the trend we've been seeing here. There might be an exception or two, so don't sue me over that. But I mean, some of the comments coming in, a real comment on the whole property tax issue, saying out-of-state investors will not protest property tax increases. They will just pass it on to the tenant. And the number of rentals has been increasing, which forces local buyers out of the market. Even homeowners who have an older home are squeezed out with no alternative. Local governments are the only winners for a time here. I mean, there's certainly a lot of concern that comes with this whole situation. And yeah, the increasingly squeeze in the rental market. I mean, there seems to be enough people willing to pay it for now, but we've started hearing at least a story or two of people saying, I got to leave the area now, for an area that has been for the longest time, El Paso in general, known for not that expensive housing, but out-of-state investors, among other things. And RJ also asking, waiting to see if Elon reinstates the banished and changes the algorithm to allow free speech. That's a decent question, and one that I have more than a couple of concerns about here, but we'll get to that in a minute, because among other things, one, just to put a pin on the whole property tax thing, there's a couple of things you need to know. A, if you are in one of those homestead exemption categories, again, El Paso Matters notes that this can only go, that the value of the property, the taxable value, can only go up 10% in a given year. So that's one way to keep it down if you're in that area. But that also, again, that when we're looking at the no new value rate restrictions coming in, that there's the rollback rate. So this has been put in place by the state of Texas in previous legislative sessions, that there could not be a, say, 10% increase in your tax rate year over year, that they are set to a maximum of 3.5%, that over that would send it to a vote, meaning that, well, you would probably be reasonable to expect it to be rejected in general outside of any specific campaign issues, but that really it's going to be kept at under 3.5% more realistically, because no one wants to then say, unless they got a real good justification to bother the voters and probably get it turned down. But that's only over new revenue. So it's not just, well, we have the tax rate at, say, 15% last year. Now it's going to be 18.5%. If that 15% rate ends up coming back as bringing in a significant amount, say 3% more over last year on its own, they can only raise it by 5% or maybe even have to technically drop it. Now, yes, that would still end up meaning that you're paying more in taxes overall, but again, rates may fluctuate, so worth keeping an eye on as we get into, some of these budget seasons are already coming up here, and of course, the elections that are going to be coming. We'll dive into those a little bit more once we get past these midterms and these not just the midterm runoffs. Then we'll be getting more into these midterms that do include those city council elections here. So make sure to keep an eye on that. RJ saying, I personally would challenge the property tax and raise the rent, but that's just me, a capitalist pig here. Good to know. Let me remind me not to rent from you, but otherwise, some interesting situations arise from there. But again, one other thing I want to talk about here that is definitely going to have some effect here locally is that whole Title 42 situation. Now, there are a couple of more potentials and possibilities coming along with that. Among others, there has been a court putting a temporary order blocking the administration from lifting Title 42. I mean, this was fully anticipated and expected if you're really looking at it. You go back 2 administrations now, and there has not been much happening with border security and immigration that has not had some kind of kerfuffle in the court that has thrown a wrench into the plans, if only temporary. I mean, you pick an issue. If you want to go back to a DACA and DAPA, or again, MPP, migrant protection protocols, or even Title 42 itself here, all of these have had their own significant court challenges. So I'm not at all surprised about this. Whether it actually stays in place, well, that remains to be seen here. So there was, of course, a Texas lawsuit that we talked a little bit about last week, but then this lawsuit originally filed by Missouri, Louisiana, Arizona, as Attorney General Eric Schmidt of those states mentions here that there is a temporary restraining order to keep Title 42 in place. Not surprised that happened, but again, not exactly a long-term plan coming with it, which is leading to, among other things, is again reported on by El Paso Matters here, that the Border Patrol sector of our area looking at, that potential end of Title 42 and what's going to be coming with it. Also reported on by the Puente News Collaborative that they are expecting, they currently are holding about 3,000 migrants as of the start of this week, at twice the center's capacity, including a temporary annex. So, the issues that are going to come along with this, I mean, estimates have varied about what the traffic we might see exactly in this area kind of on a regular basis, but thousands is pretty much the consensus that I'm seeing, so I wouldn't be surprised if we end up hitting this. Documented saying just enforce our laws, and Robbie Flores also chiming in there. Again, if you want to see all these comments, you can go primarily over to the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, and see how the title, how the conversation go along on its own. But again, Title 42, again, the current plan for it is to end on May 23rd, but that there will be going more to the processing under Title 8, which hasn't been mentioned that much. But, the impact on our area will probably be a little bit larger than that, because it also is being reported on that, just again, the title here, I spent more than $9 million on unused El Paso hotel beds for detained migrants. There's been pretty much, even across the different spans and era of the recent migration patterns that you can look at for this, pretty much the El Paso and borderland region, the primary focus has not been in housing in this area, but even from the nonprofit community, when it has largely been in charge of the aftermath of the federal processing, after the kind of aftermath of either the catch and release or the pending asylum cases, those kind of things, has always been a get them out of town kind of process. I mean, I've been in some of these processing centers in previous years doing some of the reporting on the situations there, and we're looking at the span of days, weeks at most, waiting on essentially getting a ticket, usually on a bus, out of town with the temporary legal authorization or the pending court dates kind of thing in their hand. And that has basically been the focus. And to my understanding, that has not really changed that much in town. So it is interesting that there was, among other things, a huge waste of money on this. Got to wonder how this will then affect, some of these back-end systems, if this money is then going to actually end up being used or properly used here. But again, we've seen it across the couple of recent administrations. That's, the government in the business of housing large amounts of temporary people. Let's just say that I'm not unhappy that we don't have essentially refugee camps writ large here in the United States, but also even when we get close to it, like we're talking about these housing efforts or the migrant shelters or the unaccompanied minor shelters, all of that kind of things just seem to be on balance fraught with problems. Doesn't matter who gets the contract, if they're experienced or not, though it does seem to be, again, across administrations that some inexperienced organization ultimately ends up taking the helm for whatever damn reason and doesn't end up working out that well. So would be very much in favor of, I mean, we've got some new solutions that have been suggested, but haven't seen much actual, action happening with them as of yet. I mean, even though El Paso Congresswoman was sending that letter calling for the in-country processing, that kind of fell by the wayside, as there's been more, talk about Title 42, among other things. But that would make at least a modicum of sense. But they're also, again, the border security needs cannot be ignored alongside with that, because if it's I could either wait to my country and still be subject to the concerns that I have, or just go to the border itself and see how that works out for me. Neither seeming like great solutions on this side of the border if there isn't actually border security backing it up. So I see them as intrinsically linked. Apparently, I'm weird that way because no one else really seems, at least in elected office, seems to be talking about it that way. So, we'll see what happens here. Some more interesting phrases coming out here. Flaca Jimenez, I think if I'm taking the reference correctly, saying Godspeed, Brandon. So we'll see how that works out, because, yes, if that were to actually happen, and there being plans and policies actually put into place, as opposed to the, I'm sure it'll be fine kind of sense I'm getting right now. Yeah, Godspeed indeed, but only time will tell, but I'm not going to hold my breath in the meantime here. We got to take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll get to more of these topics affecting us here in the borderland. And yes, Twitter. I know that's kind of the elephant in the room. And, we're live on that platform right now, so it'd be kind of hypocritical of us not to talk about it here. So coming out of this break, more on that. And again, the things affecting us here in the borderland. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in. We'll keep going over those on the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, of course, and twitch.tv. So back after this break with more here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hey everyone, this is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. Topping our news today, for the first time since the start of the pandemic, there are fewer than 500 active COVID-19 cases in El Paso. El Paso County also reporting 21 new infections today. Hospitalized with the virus, that number now stands at 25, and of those, 10 are in intensive care. The positivity rate is just below 8%. Texas Democratic gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke says he's tested positive for COVID-19 and has mild symptoms. He received the positive results today. O'Rourke says he's clear that he is fully vaccinated and boosted. He says he will now be following public health guidelines. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Watch for a crash with injuries. Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Airway. Gateway Boulevard westbound at McRae. An accident reported there. Another crash reported at Lomoland Drive at Rojas. And a heads up that Donovan Drive is down to one lane in each direction from Thorne to Borderland for some road work starting today. Expect delays north of Thorne on Donovan. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
After a pleasant start to the work week, we'll see a few changes as early as tomorrow as winds remain out of the east. Tonight, expect a few clouds overhead and a slight breeze with temperatures in the upper 40s to lower 50s by tomorrow morning. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about our next rain chance, plus when warmer temperatures return to the area. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Finding a great hire can be a challenge. That's why there's Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 toward your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price and deadline you agreed to, he'll buy it from you himself. You're not going to find another real estate agent in El Paso who is that invested in getting your home sold. He's the only one I'd call. Google Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S. Read over 400 five-star reviews because I'm not the only one who knows You should call Brian Birds. Google Brian Birds or just check out brianbirds.com.
Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 on News Radio 690 KTSM, breaking down the impact of the news on the borderland and beyond. Brought to you in part by Mission Del Rey Southwest, souvenirs, gifts, and decor. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Don't drive much, don't pay much with pay-per-mile insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today. This report is sponsored by Allstate.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. However you're getting at us, particularly if you're over on the app, don't forget about leaving those talkback messages if you want to, kind of leaving it as a time capsule for us for a little bit later in the show and for future shows here. So keep that in mind. Just press that red button to get there. But also that pound 250 feature we do still have up. And the way you do that is on your cell phone, got the app or not, dial pound 250. When prompted, say Talk El Paso. And leave us a message day or night. Got at least a couple of those, I think, to get to here today. So all in due course. Just remember to keep it clean, because in either of those platforms, you can end up on air. And he doesn't say, I'm not wanting to, but I will put together a supercut that's just bleeped to hell if we have to. But no, in the meantime, a lot more to talk about here. So speaking of being out there and on the platforms that we're on, we've been on Twitter, well, for months now, though I cross-posted some things. So, of course, the major elephant in the room that, yes, I've been very much paying attention to, and everyone else on the internet has been losing their minds in one way or the other. Like, there's been no, meh takes out there that I've been seeing about, yes, the purchase by Elon Musk, space billionaire is the shorthand phrase that I think I like the best for it, in order to buy Twitter for that about 43, depending on the estimate here, $1 billion. It's a finance thing, and, well, the ownership group will probably come along with it. And I have a variety of concerns and a variety of issues with the whole idea of it. I mean, okay, public administration and, I forget the name of the guy who actually is running it now, the CEO of it, the guy with the beard, the long, scraggly beard. I think his name is Jack, if I'm not mistaken. I'll look that up in a second. But the administration of it and sure, it's not been a neutral kind of thing, because there's certainly been, well, takes and stances that have been taken by the administration of the platform here. So there's been a lot of applause for Elon Musk in, well, taking on the platform and taking it private. And, well, essentially, I think a lot of the thought around it is the idea that, well, he will do what we want him to. He will allow for free speech. I think a lot of the talk out there is that we think he's on our side kind of thing, or we think he's not on our side is really what it boils down to. So the idea of limiting or not free speech, I mean, Elon Musk, on his own part, tweeting out today that I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter, because that is what free speech means here. And I would certainly hope that that would be the outcome on this. I mean, sure, there are certain active, planning and saying doxing attempts, the ways that actually incite violence that should probably be more looked at than not. But here's the real issue when you even get into that. It's when it comes to content moderation and dealing with something on an open platform. This is why there was that whole, section argument that was going on social media that was about the actual administration. I believe it was Section 230, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, because of how it relates to the actual dealing with, well, moderation and removal of content here, and why many social media platforms have fought tooth and nail over the years to keep it the hell out, because essentially there's the whole sword and shield, not to delve too much into the issue here, but the idea that social media companies are supposed to be doing more active moderation, removing literally harmful content, that being the sword, and that they would be prevented from having lawsuits against them on the Shield side. But that sword has largely fallen by the wayside, and they're only really using the Shield part of it because it prevents them from being lawsuits. And any large business in these kind of realms, and these are some of the hugest businesses that have ever existed when it comes to the free speech sphere, there is a lot of liability that they could be racking up. So they've relied on this and have essentially taken a we don't moderate it kind of approach here, but still relying on the Shield to keep them from getting just constantly, like, it would literally never end, would be my expectation. It would just be lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. So I can't be too surprised that they are then going to be potentially putting themselves up more with this. And so really Elon Musk going with that might be in place of it here, but also he has shown himself just personally to be a little unwelcoming of criticism in the past. I mean, it was 6 years ago, but did find the actual best link I have it from the Guardian about Elon Musk personally cancels blogger's Tesla order after quote unquote rude post here. So it does make me wonder how committed he will be to, well, criticism of himself on the platform here. And if basically he has set himself up in a position where either everything has to go on and they have to keep deflecting flack from anything that might happen that they don't like, but because it really, if even they dip a toe into moderation, it does seem like that might open them up to, well, serious issues here. And I mean, really the connection, he's going to be inexorably linked with this platform here. And another, well, example, Morbid Monday must be here. RJ saying over the comments, maybe a little bit, but one of the examples that has been taken most recently on this that it seems the most applicable to this case, this circumstance of an otherwise kind of interesting and maybe niche platform that has probably an outside influence over what it was intended to be as kind of a niche platform, and that was then taken over by a major entity, and then, well, let me just give it to you on the back end of it here. Someone that I remembered from the Tumblr days. If you ever had one of those, kind of like a micro-blogging site, kind of in between, but you could do very long things on it. I never really stepped into it myself because it seemed like pretty niche, but the example was brought up how Yahoo bought it a decade and a half ago at this point for $1.1 billion. And that given the, well, platform and the people, what people did on it, Yahoo had to end up selling it for just under $3 million at the end because they were losing so much. It was causing so many issues for them. So that's the kind of closest example I could come up with of a similar type of situation of, again, a major entity. Again, the numbers here are very different, $44 billion, but we're also in a completely different situation. Now ending up as in charge of this, whether it'll be taking it to new heights, as Musk has claimed he will, or it's going to be the albatross around his neck, remains to be seen. Again, as John Browsland brought up a little bit earlier, the idea of it being it'll be a big fight between Twitter and Trump's Truth Network, because, of course, that's been one of the major points of contention. That's not a surprise to anyone about the continual ban of the former president's former very popular and pretty influential account on the platform here, where it'll come back. And, well, Trump has said himself that now he'll focus on his own platform going forward here. So that kind of a conflict, interesting situations abound. So truly, if the stated intentions are going to be the focus and come out in reality for this platform here, I've been doing random experiments and including now having this show over on Twitter here. Actually had my 13th anniversary the other day, believe it or not, here, when I basically said, so what's this Twitter thing about? And haven't done terrifically much of substance in the meantime. But whether or not that experiment actually continues and works out, I think it would be a good thing if it actually does. But, well, the devil's in the details, and there are a hell of a lot of details here. So stay tuned, I guess, is the shortest I can say. But, well, I was going with the phrase from earlier, Godspeed here. RJ pointing out that Trump doesn't even post on his own platform. Very curious. I mean, I think that the actual Truth Network has been having some issues here. We've had some interest on us being over on that platform, but it's not really available for that just yet. I think that they're running into the issues of, putting on a major social media platform overnight doesn't really totally work out that way, no matter how much money you throw at it. But again, we'll keep our eye on that, among other things. So that's just some of the things going on and definitely affecting us here in the borderland. And of course, here on this program today, that's going to lead us to the next break of this hour. And coming out of this break, we'll do what we usually do, which is open up those phone lines, because We've got a lot of stuff that we've mentioned here, more that we're going to get to, but of course, more topics and subjects and comments we can get to here. So if you want to chime in today, again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Keeping it El Paso centric, borderland focused, what affects us here as we do during these early parts of the week. So if you want to call in there, more than welcome to do so. Otherwise, back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Thorne, a disabled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. I-10 westbound at Zaragoza, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right side also. And on Loop 375 northbound at Iron Medics, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder there. Watch for an accident, Gateway Boulevard westbound at McRae. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is paid for by NHTSA. Leaving a child in a hot vehicle can lead to their death very quickly. Set cell phone reminders or place something you'll need in the back seat so you don't forget your child is in the car. Look for your baby before you lock. Brought to you by NHTSA.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're speaking another language, like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
Help DEA keep our community safe and healthy by participating in National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, Saturday, April 30th. Take action right in your own home by cleaning out your family medicine cabinet of unneeded medications. Keep them safe, clean them out, take them back. To find a collection site near you, visit DEATakeback.com. Do your part to lower overdose deaths and prevent prescription drug misuse before it starts. Visit DEATakeback.com. That's DEATakeback.com.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Caitlin, age 20.
I got COVID in November 2020. In January, I started having long-term problems. I was a varsity soccer player in high school, and now I get winded just from walking. I can't remember things. It's just unbearable.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with a new way to enjoy our beautiful planet. Energy consumption is a primary contributor to a changing climate, producing around 27% of greenhouse gases in the United States. Save money and energy at home by turning off your computer completely before you go to bed. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Staples Print and Marketing Services helps small businesses print big with wide format signs and banners. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 5/28. Visit staples.com/signage for details. This is your sign to print big at Staples.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to get at the show. Of course, we got that phone line open right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. I'll leave us a message, of course, for future shows here. You can do so on the Talk Back feature on, primarily through the iHeartRadio app. You can just look for that button with the microphone on it. Just make sure you're on our station, and you can leave it for us there. But then also the pound 250 keyword Talk El Paso feature. If you want to do it that way and leave us a message there, we got at least one of those we'll get to later in the program here. But of course, we got that phone line open, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. And all the comments coming in, Skeptic Squad very much out in force today over on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, primarily facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Some of the comments coming in here on the immigration issues, John Browsland saying just issue CBP, I think what it meant. Border Patrol agents' white gloves, i.e. Vietnam's white mice, and take away their weapons. We now have a welcoming committee rather than a Border Patrol. I am sure that will have an impact, though probably not exactly a great one here. The RJ saying, I'm also all for collapsing the third world with lockdowns leading to food shortages and forcing millions to migrate to Western Europe and North America, but that's just me, an evil globalist here. Some analysis happening on there as well. John Brazelton also with a spicy take saying that Beto deserves COVID here. Okay, I learned it actually the other day that it wasn't exactly Mark Twain, though I'd like to think it is. He had a similar kind of quote, but the idea that I've never wished death on a person, but there have been many obituaries I've read with great pleasure, kind of feels how I think here. Maria Coleman, I'm bringing it back home a little bit, though, saying those in elected office are not directly impacted by their failed policies, residing in security buildings while in D.C. Politicians go with a tide of public opinion. The only message they understand is loss at the voting booth. So, again, as a note there, no politicians. Well, no statewide politician. There might be a couple of ballots or two here or there. But again, on the Texas side of things and that part of our audience, we do have that early voting having started today for that uniform and constitutional election. Again, for the majority of, for all of the state, the real issues to vote on there will be those two constitutional amendments that will be affecting those property taxes and what you can pay, what you can even be taxed on in the future here. So just make sure to keep that in mind and make sure you have your plan for that. I'm not going to hold my breath for even double-digit turnout this time around. I'd love to see it. I would love to see it because it's only a constitutional amendment. But, well, I've been hurt before by other expectations here. Ed Clore also saying, yes, Beto tested positive for COVID. And on a related subject, I think referring to Texas Gas Service announced a rate increase. Not surprised there either here. So, yeah, kind of a problem here. RJ also referring to some of the Shanghai lockdown and the issues coming out of here. Some spicy words in there that might affect us on the social media, but I won't pop it up here. But saying that lockdown can't wait for unalived animals and cats and dogs here and unaliving attempts off the ranch home here. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues that come when you're discussing all of those things. But again, if you're wanting to chime in, add your 2 cents, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. One of the other issues that is also, well, kind of burgeoning around here is more focus on downtown redevelopment here. We've had some guests on in the past and some focus on the Golden Horseshoe area, or now known better as the Downtown Management District. And of course, there has been a lot of analysis on what is going on with the attempts. I mean, there's been a lot of focus on, the arena, that potential, the Duranguita area, and that ongoing litigation. Was down there by there the other day and hasn't changed much. Still got that green paneled fencing going up and the building's still sitting there. You can't really get a good look at them through that unless you get a little bit higher up. But now there's some, new incentives and new programs going on to try and evaluate more what could go on there. Releasing a new report, Central Downtown El Paso Area-Wide Planning and Revitalization Strategies report, been digging into that. And it's a interesting proposal. There have been some other previous studies that have been famous or infamous in their own rights on the idea of what could happen there. So we'll probably be talking about that more in future days because sure, there's been a lot of maybe undue focus on downtown when it feels like other areas are languishing. But I mean, the idea of strong central corridors of business, it's a persuasive one. And I can get it in its own right and for its own reason, because I think that El Paso has probably lucked into, not necessarily because of anyone's individual planning or looking at actually accurately forecasting what would be happening with kind of larger societal efforts. But, well, in current and, younger generations, there is more of an interest in being in a place that has services, things to do, etc. The whole, white picket fence not exactly being as much of an ideal for them. And whether you think that's a good idea for you or not, certainly open to it. But that's why it does seem that there is this continual focus on what is going to be happening with downtown. A lot of this corridor and the study looking primarily at essentially you want to go in between El Paso Street or basically in between the streetcar lines, actually. And so those kind of analysis, I mean, this kind of stuff has gone on for quite a while. And north of Paisano, I should also say, is a lot of focus of it here. So whether or not that actually works out remains to be debated, but I'm curious to know what you all think. If that is something, again, if there was more to do down there, again, a comment that is really sticking with me, the idea that for downtown to really take off and start being not just a visitable place, but a livable place, because there are, of course, apartments going down there, but it's still kind of a common refrain that you have to leave downtown to do most kind of essential life things, including, well, grocery shopping. and that is going to be something that's really going to be necessary to keep it going. So land use focus is something they talk about, tenant recruitment, and as part of that, again, in this study that is out now, you can find it reported over by El Paso Wink. They have the link to it and more of the discussion about those issues. I'm open to the suggestion of it. I don't know if I'm totally going to bite it on it myself, the idea of living downtown, looking at alternates, but I guess if it was a good enough situation, I wouldn't be totally opposed to it. But again, what that might mean for the future of the region and the future of habitation in downtown El Paso, an interesting situation. Ion Grimm chiming back here that on the gubernatorial candidate Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke getting COVID, saying no one deserves COVID, no matter how bad we think they are. Again, I think that it does make a lot of sense to say that I would never wish death on anyone, but, well, I'm not going to begrudge anyone any schadenfreude either here. But yeah, consequences of actions are one thing, but then saying that something bad should happen to them because I don't like them is totally another. We'll fully agree with that sentiment there here. So coming up on the end of this first hour of the program and needing to get into the second one, again, we do have those phone lines open now if you want to get on the line here before we end up at that top of the hour news break. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of stuff affecting us going on in, around, and about the borderland here today, including some of those lawsuits and other things going on, protecting Title 42. We'll talk more about that and a lot of the other situations, including the social media ones, coming out of this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Do appreciate those over on the social media. Ion Grimm, RJ, Ed Clore, Maria Coleman, John Brownson, and Flaco Jimenez, and more. Robbie Flores as well. Barbara Carrasco tuning in, chiming in. Also leaving those likes, Monica Rio, Monica Cervantes, and Flaco Jimenez. All that and more out of this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got a couple of vehicles blocking the right shoulder on the I-10 westbound, one at Zaragoza, the other I-10 westbound at Thorne. It's a semi that's blocking the right shoulder there. Donovan Drive is down to one lane each direction from Thorne to Borderland. Starting today, they're working on a median project. East Paisano Drive eastbound at Gateway North, an accident there, and Gateway Boulevard westbound at McRae. Watch for a crash there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-616-1997. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-616-1997. That's 800-616-1997. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online at KTSMradio.com.
Dad, this is fun. I didn't think I'd like kayaking.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. But I think it's time to head back in.
Okay. Can we come back?
Sure.
Tomorrow?
Let's check with Mom. Hey, be careful getting out of the boat.
It's a kayak, Dad.
I'm going to return the kayak. Just make sure you have everything.
Yep. Can we walk home?
How about a taxi? 233 North Maple, please.
It's a short fare from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a neighborhood park or green space near you. Also, find fun activities to do like boating and biking or camping and hiking, plus much more. It's all right in your naturehood.
Best day ever.
News on the hour and the half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Twitter will no longer be a publicly traded company once Elon Musk becomes the owner of the social media site. Twitter said shareholders will get just over $54 a share as part of the transaction. That means the deal involving the Tesla CEO is worth about $44 billion. Musk has previously said Twitter needs to go private. The White House is not playing along with speculation that the U.S. may be heading into a recession due to rising inflation.
We know that costs are too high. Inflation, which the Federal Reserve has purview over, still projects that it will moderate by the end of the year.
Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters that economic indicators are strong. The FDA is approving a COVID-19 drug for young children. Gilead's coronavirus drug remdesivir is meant to treat infants and children over 28 days of age. This is the first drug to be approved for COVID-19 treatment for children under 12 years old. More details surrounding the relationship and eventual divorce of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard are coming to light.
Depp is suing his ex-wife for $50 million in connection with an op-ed piece Heard had published about domestic abuse in 2018. Heard has brought her own suit for $100 million. She alleged Depp put cigarettes out on her in audio that was played in a Virginia courtroom Monday.
I think that was another grossly exaggerated moment of Miss Heard's. I did not put a cigarette out on her or throw a cigarette at her.
Heard is expected to take the stand along with actors Paul Bettany and James Franco, as well as Elon Musk, who dated Heard for about a year following her divorce from Depp. I'm Lisa Taylor.
A federal judge in Louisiana is temporarily blocking the Biden administration from ending Title 42. The public health policy is being used to expedite deportations at the U.S.-Mexico border. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A flight from Nashville to Washington, D.C. was canceled after smoke was seen coming from the plane. The American Airlines plane was stopped on the runway at Nashville International Airport when FAA officials noticed smoke coming from the left main gear. Passengers and crew were removed from the airplane. The FAA will investigate the cause of the smoke. No other flights were impacted. A new poll shows a majority of voters disapprove of New York Governor Kathy Hochul's job performance. Scott Pringle reports.
The Siena College poll shows 57% disapprove the job Governor Kathy Hochul is doing, and that's up from 53% last month. The majority of respondents not happy with the new Buffalo Bills stadium deal that involves $600 million taxpayer dollars. Most respondents do support actions by the governor and lawmakers on bail reform and the partial suspension of the gas tax. Crime, though, according to the poll, the biggest issue on the minds of voters. The poll shows the majority of state residents think New York is on the wrong track.
The San Diego County Sheriff's Department is holding a public forum tomorrow as it responds to deaths in the jail system.
The virtual town hall is set for 5:30 tomorrow night, and people can take part or provide comments and questions ahead of time offline. The Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board will be looking at a study they commissioned on the last 10 years of in-custody deaths, comparing San Diego to other parts of the state. A recent state audit said San Diego had the highest death rate in California the last decade and a half. And the interim sheriff says they'll be putting recommendations from the study in place, including drug and mental health screenings for those in the jail system. I'm Jack Cronin.
A mama bear in western North Carolina no longer has a plastic lid stuck around her neck. Wildlife biologist Justin McVeigh was able to get the lid off the bear Sunday after she had the lid around her for at least 4 days. He tells the Asheville Citizen-Times the state's Wildlife Resource Commission had been working around the clock to find the bear after she was first seen Thursday. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bills. That's bills. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by General Dynamics Information Technology.
Are you ready for an unparalleled work experience where you see your impact every day? GDIT is hiring bilingual English-Spanish customer service representatives to deliver critical support to the government. $500 sign-on bonus available for select positions. Apply now at gdit.com/El Paso Jobs.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. Regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
The Lavinia Spring Wine Festival is April 30th and May 1st. Info at laviniawinery.com. Rich is just a really, really, really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, which, yes, does include Twitter, twitter.com/Talk El Paso. Also, Andrew J. Polk over there if you really want to find us. Either way, on all those places, Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk are the names to find us under. So, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube. Again, the Twitter pages, and twitch.tv/Andrew J. Polk. So, those are the ways you can find us. A lot of ways to get at us, get the messages out here, and just contribute to the show if you really want to get your 2 cents on there. Among other things, we also got that phone line open, of course. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, including more of those border issues and how our sector is preparing for them. A little bit of a waste, which is par for the course, I feel like, when it comes to some of these efforts. But beyond that, a whole lot more going on and affecting us here. So let's get to those phone lines now. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Andrew.
What's on your mind?
On Friday, Barack Obama at a news conference was complaining that nobody trusted their leaders and news sources because of problems with disinformation and misinformation. And I just wonder why people don't trust their leaders anymore and their news sources. But then I found out, and I've talked about this before, that on December 10th, 2020, the British Broadcasting Corporation launched an agreement called the Trusted News Initiative. The premise was to support the COVID vaccine concept and prevent any dissenting views from seeing the light of day. They became the arbiters of truth with a self-appointed charter to inform, quote, inform future media education programs. The signers of the agreement included AFP, CBS Radio Canada, Financial Times, First Draft, Washington Post, New York Times, Deutsche Press, Agence France Press, Facebook, Google, YouTube, Microsoft, Twitter, the Associated Press, and Reuters. I wonder why we don't trust what's coming out of the news and our leaders today. With something like that going on, I mean, this is something that our leaders and news press have all come together to tell us what to think, how to think, and why to think.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen these historic lows of faith in both institutions and the ones reporting on them here, which is a problem, and not just a lot of like, people don't like what's being said there, because it trickles down much further than that. Because if there's than important and objectively true things going on. If people have that skepticism back of their heads that's been fostered over years, it can lead to serious problems here. So, I mean, I get what you're saying there. Yeah, this whole trusted news initiative, and I get in a sense how that came about, because the whole concept of it takes just the order of magnitude of effort that it takes to put bad information out versus to refute it is, I mean, it's huge. It's a disparity that you have people keep throwing stuff out there that it takes that much longer to then fully and conclusively disprove, and wanted to go about that. So I get it in its initial sense, but yeah, the unanticipated, or probably anticipatable, but clearly not thought out here, second order impact of that being that, well, people aren't going to believe it as much because they know that you are taking not just a, okay, here is what the news is, but and here's what we think you need to know kind of thing. Kind of old phrase comes to mind here, all the news that's fit to print. I want to say it was in an old game of like Easy Money or something like that, like a pre-Monopoly style game that had an old family cabin kind of thing here. So it gets a little, it's not quite dystopian, like we're not totally in like a 1984 situation there, but it's a little bit further along the scale than I'd like to be.
If you gaslight the public enough, you can convince them of just about anything. The international process of editorial control delivers unprecedented news coverage of a unified message. This is what was going on at the time. The pandemic threatens the survival of all humanity. There is no therapy to cure the sick. It is necessary to control and confine the population. And the kicker, our only hope is a vaccine. All they did was they perpetuated the psychosis of fear. Mm-hmm. They made it to where there was no cure. There was no hope. And what they did, they knew damn well that there was a cure, not maybe a cure, but there was a treatment for these things. And they just over and over told us, no, you have to stay in your house, and you have to, if you get sick, you just wait until you get sick enough to die. And then you go in the hospital where they give you remdesivir, which kills your kidneys and it causes problems with your lungs. And now, I just heard on the news just now that they're going to be giving remdesivir to children under 5 who have COVID. Do you think that's sick?
I mean, this is, I'll be honest, I've never had to have anyone I even know that got remdesivir, so the full side effects are something that I've seen academically, but have not had to deal with. But the whole medical freedom thing that you talk about, sometimes it's important, but to the whole situation here, two major thoughts come to mind is that people don't like being manipulated, because I mean these even come up on our show here, the whole, even outside of this international effort, the conglomerization that has happened in some spheres of media here that is leading to then similar reports coming out here. I mean, the supercuts that you can find around of the same kind of thing being said from multiple different outlets across the country because it was put out by like their national affiliate kind of thing. People tend to react very negatively to even that kind of a thing, even if there isn't this more overarching issue with it. But even beyond that, yeah, the issue comes when it moves from the reporting of objectively true and important things. Like, sure, needs to be some topic selection, and because you can't do everything, otherwise that's when you had to have been kind of more of a Brave New World than a 1984 situation where there's so much drivel out there that the actual important stuff gets lost. But once you move beyond just putting out what is important and what is, verifiable to well, this is what we think you need to do, so we're only going to talk about that, like you were saying, that, again, people tend to, once they take, a moment to step back and look at what's happening, react very negatively towards it. And again, in the immediate sense, if they're saying that, yes, this is the only way to do it, and well, there might be some other things out there, but we can't really focus on those, we have to focus on the core message. Yeah, people realizing that react very negatively in the time frame, and once they realize it, which has led to a turn of the trust, like you were saying. And even beyond that, then when there are important things coming out and they're like, no, there's an emergency we need to talk about here, you still have that trust deficit that you even have to overcome. So in the short and long term, it tends to be not great, which is why, among other things, on this program, we will talk about the issues and focus on what we do feel is important and impacting in the region, but also open it up and say that there might be other perspectives. It's that lack of other perspectives, I feel, and that kind of one-way nature that happens in a lot of these that is really seeing these serious impacts of, again, the trust, and then the second order and third order, even beyond that we're still feeling now.
And can we really trust what they're talking and what they're saying to us about what's happening in Ukraine? I mean, the Ukrainian government was one of the most corrupt governments in the whole world. Zelensky was brought into power by a man by the name of Kolomoisky, who was a Ukrainian oligarch, and he was trying to get his bank back. He had a bank called Privet Bank, and there was also papers. Look this up, Pandora Papers.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you remember that one? Do you remember what that was about?
Yep, the Pandora Papers and all the things that came out of those, and even the previous ones, the Panama and all the other ones, about all these international holdings as pretty much everyone outside the U.S., because it was notably not including the U.S. and most of these came out as, all of these international tycoons are using all of these other methods to kind of scurry away this wealth and extract it from where they are otherwise holding power. Yeah.
And isn't it interesting that they in the Pandora Papers, at least in the things I've seen, they did say something about people in the United States, billionaires in the United States that were involved with these things. And it's a matter that they, and everything that you read about it on the mainstream, everybody was saying it only had to do with other people, not anybody, not any Americans.
Yep, it's true. I will say there were, of course, Americans mentioned in there and American holdings, but that the majority was notable. And one of the things that I did find myself very interested in, that it was primarily non-U.S. people involved in it because, well, among other things, the point was made to me is not that there aren't similar efforts going on in terms of people based in the U.S., but that essentially there aren't as much restrictions where they have to go as much subterfuge on it for them to do it that way. So that was a point further made to me. But I mean, that's a whole nother issue on that subject.
It is, and people need to start opening their eyes and realize that that you can't trust just about anything. You have to do a lot of research just to try to find out about what is actually happening. If you want to, most people don't have time to do that, and that's a big problem.
No, absolutely.
Nobody has enough time to sit down and do the research, and so gaslighting is the way for this government to take us over, because they can sit there and tell us anything, and most of the American people will eat it up because they don't have any other sources of information.
And I think that's a very critical point here. Trusted sources of knowing this. And I mean, yes, there's a bias about any major media outlet you're going to look at these days, but knowing who to look at, because also saying you can find about any point you want online to be supported here. It's almost like a non-sexual Rule 34 out there these days, that anything viewpoint you want to find on the internet, you can. So corollary to that here. But tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll talk more about these issues and, of course, what it means for us, understanding and kind of being a critical analyst of the things you're consuming on your own, but also more on the calls and more of the conversation about what affects us here in the borderlands. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there. We just got to take that break right now. So coming out of this break, more stuff on the line. So that number to call is 915-544-5876. 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Thorne, a disabled semi-truck is blocking the right shoulder. George Dieter Drive southbound before Montwood at Glen Drive, an injury accident there. Paramedics responding to an injury accident, Hercules at Dyer. You're able to get around that by staying on the 54 Gateway. And a medical emergency, Alameda, just north of Padres at Whitney. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by ExpressPros.com. For inspiration to reach your goals, join Ben Nemton to get on track with 5 steps to make the seemingly impossible possible. Register at ExpressPros.com/ExpressTalks. A free virtual event May 5th from Express Employment Professionals. ExpressPros.com.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Caitlin, age 20.
I got COVID in November 2020. In January, I started having long-term problems. I was a varsity soccer player in high school, and now I get winded just from walking. I can't remember things. It's just unbearable.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. A staggering 8 million tons of plastic ends up in the world's oceans every year. If current trends continue, our oceans could contain more plastic than fish by 2050. Do your part. Purchase items made from renewable or recycled content and recycle whenever possible. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Research shows people remember radio ads that remind them of the past. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual Insurance Company customizes your home insurance so you only pay for what you need, here's an ad that'll really take you back.
Back in my day, I heard a voice from the radio say, Liberty Mutual customizes my home insurance so I only pay for what I need. I'm getting on in years now, but heavens to Betsy, there are some things an old fella like me just never forgets.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
This is a metaphor for your business's journey. Sometimes it feels like the world is throwing everything it has at you, and to succeed, you need someone to guide you through. That's what Dell Technologies advisors do. They have the Windows PCs and tech advice to help you navigate whatever challenges you're up against and get you safely to where you want to be. Call an advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL. A start to a simpler experience with Windows 11 Pro.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk here. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, a lot of ways to get at us on the show. Of course, that number to call, full up at the moment, but if you want to try to squeeze in, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in on the situations we are discussing here today. Monica Reel, John Brazelton, RJ, Ion Grimm, Maria commented, Clore, Flaco Jimenez a little bit earlier. Hope he's doing safe on his trip to Walmart he announced here. But otherwise, a lot of stuff talking about here, a lot of issues. Robbie Flores a little bit earlier than that here, Barbara Carrasco as well. RJ saying, CNN believes do your own research are the four most dangerous words you can say. I mean, sure, there is a level of you need to know your own stuff here, because if you, don't say for something, you'll fall for anything, I think is the phrase we go with. But also to know that, know the agenda behind who you're getting the information from here. Objective truth is fleeting these days, because it's almost always filtered through someone's, their own lens and their own gains with it. So cultivate a variety of sources is the best recommendation I can give for you as we continue in these times here. Also saying that some on the left and New York Times are on unalive watch over Twitter and Elon Musk. The left not controlling how we think and what we know is dangerous for us. The horror here. I mean, Twitter has always had an interesting variety of sources on here. The more extreme part of it, well, again, that's why some of these bigger interests have been very interested in not having any legal control over it or handing it over entirely, as we saw during those Facebook hearings. Was that last year already? Feels like it was 3 years ago, but both last week and infinitely long ago here. But let's go back to those phone lines now. Get that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Nate on the east side here with us right now. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. It's always a pleasure. And God bless you all the Pasoers out here and people that are listening. I just want to just hit a couple of little milestones real quick, and then I'll be out of your way. First of all, I'd like to just say that there's a young man who gave his life down in an area called Eagle Pass, Texas, trying to save, I think, one or two people. That obviously, I'm not going to go with what the news is saying, but it's just something that he did what he's supposed to do as a soldier. And that's the highest price that the Bible tells us that anyone can do, is that there's no one greater than he who would lay down his life for his own, a brother, a fellow man, or whichever term that you want to put it. But if you go to the Bible, they'll give you the exact words that it said. And I just ask people in the audience to embrace that and learn about what happened there, okay, if that you can, but more so honor that. And the second thing is there's a whole lot of events coming up here in our community throughout, of course, there's events going on all throughout the year, but certainly pertaining to veterans, Independence Day, Memorial Day, all those things that is up and coming. And I will be providing you some points of contact that will be reaching out for the audience to speak and share some dates and times and support that is needed. So, Andrew, as always, God bless you and thank you for this minute or so. And you're doing a great job, and I'm behind you. Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure thing. Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one. No, I appreciate it. And yeah, of course, I mean, events coming up are important here, but remembering and recognizing the sacrifice given a specialist, Bishop E. Evans, 22-year-old field artilleryman from Arlington that joined the Texas Army National Guard in 2019, as noted by the Texas Tribune. His body was found after washed away while saving drowning migrants as part of Texas's border efforts here. So our thoughts and prayers, of course, with him and his family here. Let's get to more of those calls in the line here. Sorry, a little bit of a down note here, but it's important to recognize that and understand what is going on in all these efforts, that there are, well, real people involved. So we do have Harry on the east side here with us right now. Harry, thanks for joining us.
Hey, El Paso, change of pace here. The caller before the last great caller, I'm going to tell him what my preacher told me. He said, you're trying to make too much out of it. You know, you're just never going to understand it all. A comment, Saturday's history show, I'm going to comment, I'm probably not supposed to, but the Buffalo Soldier portion that your father pointed out was very, very informative. And I have to tell you, Andrew, I've driven through the Fort Bliss Gate for now ongoing over 39 years on and off. And they have that Buffalo Soldier statue out there. And I had just never taken the time to stop and really read it and understand it. But that was beautiful what he did Saturday. Now, let me make my comment.
Sure thing.
Words mean things. Words mean things. Regarding speaking out today, okay, the facts are these. You cannot tell or speak the truth on most subjects, especially at the national level. If you call out the major problems and who is responsible for causing them, you would be a pariah and called many things. The worst is yet to come. That's my comment.
I both agree and disagree with you, probably in equal measure. And let me tell you why more specifically. I get, yes, that often saying the truth, I mean, speaking truth to power has always been a controversial statement here. And while I do agree we need more of it here, that there are some things pushing back on it. But also, let me just say it this way, and it's more probably about how I go about this show, so maybe not necessarily your problem, but the reason I disagree with it is that we all know someone out there says, I'm just saying the truth, dropping truth bombs without regard to the impact or how it's going to have here. So they're at least the way I think about it. And this is, again, more my baggage than anyone else's that needs to call in or something I'm going to hold anyone to. But if you're just saying things that are, true, but without regard for how it will be received or how it will then be processed and used here, just saying that, it can lead to, among other things, nihilism, the idea that, why even bother here? So that's the way I look at it anyways, that yes, speaking truth and keeping it in mind and reality is important, but that doing it in such a way that actually helps cultivate further action and further in movement on it. Because if you want to just talk about everything awful in the world, those might be entirely true, but that, again, anything that leads to inaction, leads to saying, and therefore, why even bother, is what I find myself most opposed to. So again, there's a very important kernel of very, truth not to say that word too much here, that you're on to there. But again, I think the way that it has gone about is almost one of the more important issues of our day, because you can bring up objectively true things all day long and not have anything come of it. It's how we then craft it and turn it into something that is then, well, actionable, that I think is very important and often overlooked in the conversation here today.
Well, where's Harry Truman when you need him? That's all I got to say.
Yeah, buck stops here is a important but fleeting, well, even just methodology and philosophy these days. I'll fully agree with you on that.
Okay, Andrew, carry on.
No, appreciate it. Thank you for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right, that's actually going to take us into our next break here. I know we got more callers on the line and more comments coming in that we will definitely get to here, so we got more time on the show here, so we'll be getting to all of that. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. Even with this wind blowing around today, and of course we are seeing those change of the seasons. We're definitely out of whatever we might call winter around here. So thinking about that new do, or how you're going to keep your hair going, is something that, well, I have a little bit of a concern on as we do this program and put out the live streams as we do. But even if you are just wanting to know where the best place to go to deal with all of this for, well, you definitely want to go and check out the Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon. Of course, they're the official hair and beard sponsors of the show, but that's not just because, well, we want that they wanted to. I went to them because I've been going to them for years now, and I trust them with all the hair on my head, hair, beard, and everything included here, because they're some of the best experts in it. And again, combine the services that of the barbering arts with some of the best things you want to get out of a spa, and even the ambiance of your favorite watering hole. So of course, make sure to keep in mind that we got Father's Day coming up before too long. So get your father what he really wants, a gift card to Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Med Spa. You can find them, of course, online at gentsrepublic.com. That's gentsrepublic.com. Find their full menu of services, including expert hair and beard care, or give them a call at 915-532-3000, 915-532-3000. I just made my next appointment. I got one coming up in a week here, but the one after that, because they are getting busy enough that it makes sense to secure your time there and really get treated like a king for a day. Again, 915-532-3000 or online at gentsrepublic.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hey everyone, this is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. Topping our news today, for the first time since the start of the pandemic, there are fewer than 500 active COVID-19 cases in El Paso. El Paso County also reporting 21 new infections today. Hospitalized with the virus, that number now stands at 25, and of those, 10 are in intensive care. The positivity rate is just below 8%. Texas Democratic gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke says he's tested positive for COVID-19 and has mild symptoms. He received the positive results today. O'Rourke says he's clear that he is fully vaccinated and boosted. He says he will now be following public health guidelines. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Afternoon traffic heating up in El Paso. I-10 eastbound between Artcraft and Thorne. It's stop-and-go traffic with 6-minute delays. Loop 375 northbound between the I-10 Gateway and Pelicano. It's slow and go with 5-minute delays. I-10 eastbound at Thorne. That stalled semi is still blocking the right shoulder. And George Dieter southbound before Montwood, an injury accident with paramedics on the scene. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
After a pleasant start to the work week, we'll see a few changes as early as tomorrow as winds remain out of the east. Tonight, expect a few clouds overhead and a slight breeze with temperatures in the upper 40s to lower 50s by tomorrow morning. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about our next rain chance, plus when warmer temperatures return to the area. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is paid for by NHTSA. Leaving a child in a hot vehicle can lead to their death very quickly. Set cell phone reminders or place something you'll need in the back seat so you don't forget your child is in the car. Look for your baby before you lock. Brought to you by NHTSA.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-616-1997. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-616-1997. That's 800-616-1997. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Wendy's knows a better breakfast starts with a better biscuit. That's why you can get a hot and buttery Wendy's breakfast biscuit with bacon or sausage, fresh cracked egg and cheese for just $1. Get your Wendy's Buck Biscuit Sandwich today. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Breakfast Biscuit Sandwich. Just $1.
There won't be much substance on your news feed until you add us. Just like us or click on the link at kcsmradio.com.
In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq after saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on through the words he spoke before his final deployment. If not me, then who? Words that today fuel the spirit of Travis Manion Foundation. And through TMF, these words can live in you too. Show the world what you're made of, because character is invisible until it's not. Find out how you can strengthen the character of your community alongside empowered veterans, families of the fallen, and inspired civilians at travismanion.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to get at the show, to join us here on air, and we talk about all the things that affect us here in the borderland. Of course, we got that phone line open right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in over on our social media as well, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube. Twitter, yes, we're up on Twitter and have plans to be so for the foreseeable future. That's Twitter at Talk El Paso or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We're in all those places, amongst other things, for the accounting for the variability between these platforms and just to keep consistently up on all of them, but also have the conversation, the comments coming in there. RJ, Flaca Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Monica Riela, with potential future conversations going on there. I'll have to drop you a line here shortly. But John Broughton, RJ, Ion Grimm, Ed Clore, Maria Coleman, and more tuning and chiming in on all of those here. RJ saying that the truth sets us free. Media lies by omission and outright lies keep us in bondage, aka lockdowns. I prefer not to comply and die on my knees, but fight back with truth and die on my feet here. Maybe a little bit extreme and a little bit rhetorical here, but I mean, an informed populace is not just a good thing, it's an important thing, something that, the framers of the Constitution, amongst others, thought of as very important. Thomas Jefferson, one of the key ones among them, that an informed populace is the chief guard against tyranny and all the ills that may fall the, at that point, nascent republic, but also, furthermore, still important in the current day. So being informed also means not just going for anything that agrees with you. Part of the reason we do what we do here is to have that conversation about issues and explore some of the different viewpoints. I know I'm weird in the way that I actually actively seek out viewpoints that I might otherwise be opposed to, because knowing just and understanding without necessarily having to agree with those standpoints is, well, I think how a functioning democracy actually works in my mind. It's something that's fallen way too far by the wayside. But again, that we do things a little bit differently here in a lot of ways here. So let's get back to those phone lines. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Jerry on the northwest side here on the line with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I did not make it down to the county commission.
Okay.
Some bad chili last night to get me home. So
fair enough.
Beyond that point, the specialist bishop there is a real hero.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is the NCOs and the leadership down there. Are they not teaching them soldiers, water operation skills and water rescue skills. That's something that they're going to have to look at,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because that can save lives, even their own soldiers' lives.
Absolutely.
Now, on to one of the other issues that's local here is the issue with Beto O'Rourke getting COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I hope he recovers.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that's from a Republican. But he's not the only one that has gotten COVID that has been fully vaccinated.
True.
Barack Obama got it. The lady that does the press briefings for the president, Jen Psaki.
Psaki. Yep. Mm-hmm.
She had it.
Mm-hmm.
The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, got it. General Colin Powell got it. The lady that played Guymond on, I can't remember her name offhand, also got it. And they all said, well, I had gotten the shot, all of them, and I wore my mask. So I don't believe that the shot is working, personally. I think it's a fake. I think they put it out there for us to be lured into getting more stuff. You know, how you lure in a little child by giving him candy, and I forget what they call that. It's a conditioning exercise.
Mm-hmm.
When you Pavlov's dog, I believe it was Pavlov's dog, where you.
Yeah, that's more reason
lure
conditioning, that the ringing of the bell and conditioning a response to here. Let me just say this. You're of course entitled to your opinion on that, but the way I see it is that, I mean, yes, I think the choice to be able to get the vaccination or not is an important one, even just as a public health standpoint. I mean, I made the choice to get it myself because what I was looking at, the research I was doing, led me and my family to decide to get it here. I mean, I've never made a secret about that, but also when you look at the overall circumstances and the greater development that's been done of treatments, among other things, we are seeing that even as there is the potential for future waves, that this one is getting described as what we're looking at here this spring, less a wave and more of a just subtle increase. And that even though we have positivity rates, as was noted by our news partners over at KFOX 14, of about 8%, meaning that 8% of all tests that are being done are still coming back positive, we are not seeing anywhere near the amount of hospitalization we are. So again, you're very much free and should continue to be free to make your own decision and your own choices on these issues here. But I think as a whole, we're doing somewhat better than we have previously, at least in previous times of year.
And I agree with you. It is an individual's choice.
Mm-hmm.
But there was lots of times, there was a whole 3 months there where the people that did not have the shot or get the shot were blamed for spreading the shot. And that's not right either. Because if we didn't get the shot, we weren't the ones that were catching the COVID by ourselves. Even the people that had the shot were catching COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of them things that, like Ben said, they're being lied to.
I mean, again, the way this has been held, I mean, the whole public health issues and public confidence issues, I mean, yeah, referring to there, I think some of those major statements coming out of the White House at that point in time of, we are tired of the people who won't get on board, essentially, not exactly a verbatim statement, but that was the overwhelming sentiment at that point in time, which from a public confidence and a public health standpoint, I got to wonder, what the hell were you thinking that was going to do here? Because the people who agree with you are going to continue to agree with you. You're rallying them. But the people who disagree with you think anyone really going to say, man, I just got chided really badly. I think I'm going to change my whole thinking on this subject. Like, really? You think that was going to be the outcome?
Well, he claimed that he was going to be a uniter, and he dang sure isn't.
Yeah.
Biden.
Divisiveness is a difficult issue here. So hopefully we'll get over it, but I'm not going to hold my breath in the meantime.
Well, thank you, sir, for taking my call and hearing me out.
Absolutely. No, thank you for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right, we got to leave time for one more call here. This segment here, we do have. We'll take a couple more calls here before the end of the hour here, and of course, those call down to 50 calls. At least one comment that came in about that soldier. Actually, Edgar Ortiz. Want to get to there before that last call, saying about the soldier that drowned. You can say with certainty that Border Patrol agents themselves have specific instructions to never jump in the river to save any subject. I cannot imagine that the troops didn't have the same guidance, and that this is the way. This is the way rescue ropes and hooks are issued to those working the river. not to put too fine a point on it, but there have, of course, been many comments been made about some of the disorganization of the 10,000 National Guard and State Guard troops that have been deployed out there that I am sure probably going to be further investigation into, because if proper training and equipment was not provided, I think that there can and should be hell to pay for that. Because, I mean, this guy was not necessarily part of this. The gentleman, again, the specialist that unfortunately lost his life there, Bishop Evans, but support is actually critically important when it comes to that kind of position here. But time for one more call before we hit that next break on the line here. We do have Raul in the Northeast here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. You know, if it wasn't for Frankie and myself, all the opinion on your show would be right wing. And now I started losing faith in government early on as a young man during the Johnson administration and the prosecution of the Vietnam War. And then it was followed up by Nixon, one of the three worst presidents in my lifetime, Nixon, George Bush II, and now Trump. And again, he eroded confidence in the public. And then again, we had Ronald Reagan and his lies in the Iran-Contra. And then we had George Bush II and his lies of lying us into a war. And then we had the last president, Trump, 30,000 lies. No wonder people don't believe. I mean, what a big liar. And now we hear Marjorie Taylor Greene. That lady's got the worst memory I've ever seen, and she's been caught lying, as have been a whole bunch of Republicans. So it's no wonder that people lost faith in the government. But when I was criticizing the government as a young man, I was a communist. I should go to another country because I had the gall to criticize the government. And now it's all vote to criticize the government, starting with Trump again. You know, the government's the problem. Well, actually, Reagan started with the government is the problem. So it's no wonder that people lost faith in the government when you got a bunch of lying politicians, and the lies seem to have increased over time.
So I'll say right now, I don't necessarily disagree with you on the idea that politicians lie. I mean, there's the old truism, supposed to be a joke, but it turns into a truism of how do you know a politician is lying? Their mouth is moving. But the whole idea of this being a single party phenomenon just does not bear out in any way, shape, or form here. I mean, there are individuals, some of which I have liked more in government and some of which I have not liked. But again, there's never been an administration, if you want to go on that level you're referring to there, that I've found, A+, 100% done, just fantastic job, no issues with them whatsoever, because that's not the nature of the way any governance has ever practically happened in this country. Go back to president number 1, and there were an amount of issues back then, if you want to go into like issues with the Whiskey Rebellion and all that good stuff. So really, to say that there's only been one party being the issue here, and no, this is not and both parties are the problem here, that politicians are the problem here. I want to be more specific. Again, yes, the whole impetus of staying in power for the sake of staying in power is an issue. Frankly, just flat out, full stop. The way that we have this system designed and maintained, and the way that the people who do maintain their positions are able to do so, finds itself increasingly, it feels like in modern days, divorced from, well, the realities of what the people are actually voting for them and those issues they are voting on. So representative form of government certainly has its issues, but the amount of times that we see people, well, for their own self-services, for lack of a better term, does feel to be increasing here. So sure, yeah, all those administrations and issues you mentioned here certainly were attacks on government. And I mean, Ronald Reagan famous for the, what are some of the scariest words here? I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And there's a certain level of relevance that still has these days. But I mean, there were also plenty of people that were, well, criticizing the previous administration too for what they were doing or a lack thereof. To think that there is no reasonable criticism of any administration in government would be a complete fallacy in how we're thinking about these issues, because to say that, well, therefore I like them, therefore they've done nothing wrong, I think that's part of the way we've actually gotten into this situation. The idea of this us versus them tribalist kind of mentality that exists a lot of times in politics has been more than a little bit stoked by individuals who have been then seeking those offices, because unfortunately the American populace seems much more strongly to turn out to we got to stop this, that guy, this issue, whatever, than well, I like what this person is doing, and I think they will do good things. Negative votes seem to outweigh, even in this last election, positive votes. So sure, there may be some variety of opinions put on here. We don't take any of them by rote, and the idea that we need to therefore balance out or smack back at them, You're welcome to say your own piece without saying, and therefore I think everyone else is wrong because of what they believe. But that philosophy should transfer over to votes and how we evaluate our government. Because we're just saying that, well, I like this guy, therefore they're doing right, or I dislike this person, and therefore everything they're doing is wrong, is, again, overwhelmingly how I find it that we have bound ourselves in this situation, because there's always someone else saying, oh, well, you don't like what that guy is doing. I oppose him, therefore I'm right. And put myself on the social issues that way. Seriously, like, do the analysis on this, and we will find ourselves in a pretty very similar situation and similar kind of analysis being applied at any level of government. So really, people thinking for themselves, thinking critically about the issues, and thinking about, okay, these policies, what do they mean, and what are they actually going to do to affect me? All the things that we definitely focus on in this program, I find to be very necessary, and probably more than a little bit of medicine that we need when we're talking about these issues in this modern standpoint. So that's the way we will continually talk about it and keep doing it as we do so on this show. We got to take that last break right now, and coming out of this break, we'll close out the program, get to those pound 250 calls and other messages, and tell you what we got coming up for you future on the show here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk. Again, a lot of ways to get out the show. Those messages most up right now coming out of this break. Again, either on the iHeartRadio app or through the pound 250 system. So back after the break with more. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard northbound at Cassidy, stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder. An accident reported Sean Haggerty eastbound at Gateway North. Watch out for an injury accident Hercules at Dyer. You can use 54 Gateway as an alternate around it. And a crash Montana Avenue eastbound before Yarborough. Edgemere Boulevard can be your alternate there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by General Dynamics Information Technology.
Are you ready for an unparalleled work experience where you see your impact every day? GDIT is hiring bilingual English-Spanish customer service representatives to deliver critical support to the government. $500 sign-on bonus available for select positions. Apply now at gdit.com/El Paso Jobs.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price and deadline you agreed to, he'll buy it from you himself. You're not going to find another real estate agent in El Paso who is that invested in getting your home sold. He's the only one I'd call. Google Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S. Read over 400 five-star reviews because I'm not the only one who knows you should call Brian Birds. Google Brian Birds or just check out brianbirds.com.
Research shows people remember radio ads that remind them of the past. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual Insurance Company customizes your home insurance so you only pay for what you need, here's an ad that'll really take you back.
Back in my day, I heard a voice from the radio say, Liberty Mutual customizes my home insurance so I only pay for what I need. I'm getting on in years now, but heavens to Betsy, there are some things an old fella like me just never forgets.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
This is a metaphor for your business's journey. Sometimes it feels like the world is throwing everything it has at you, and to succeed, you need someone to guide you through. That's what Dell Technologies advisors do. They have the Windows PCs and tech advice to help you navigate whatever challenges you're up against and get you safely to where you want to be. Call an advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL. A start to a simpler experience with Windows 11 Pro.
Comfort Keepers Las Cruces is now hiring. Call 575-521-4400.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Closing out the show here, rounding the bend on the last segment of the last hour. Don't worry, we'll be back here, of course, tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Coming up here, of course, we were talking about those midterm election runoffs. Just as a reminder, we're in those current election. Again, April 25th, today. Oh, just that perfect day, not too hot, not too cold, just need a light jacket. May not actually be the situation here in El Paso, but early voting is definitely going on right now for that uniform and constitutional amendment election for the state of Texas. So again, epcountyvotes.com, your best resource to find everything that may or may not be on your ballot. But if you're on the Texas side of things, you definitely got those constitutional amendments that will be affecting property taxes, just that slight issue there. But for furthermore, coming up with you on the show here, we're going to be talking about some of those midterm runoffs here, including for the state attorney general. Had some guests previously on the show you might recognize from there, including a very familiar Texas-based name, Bush. Talking with George P. Bush actually tomorrow on the program, and a visit he's going to be doing here through town, and his runoff, of course, for the Republican nomination for the Texas Attorney General. So stay tuned for that. Plus, a little bit later in the week, more on local investigative reporting and more events going on. So just a whole lot of stuff coming up here, so stay tuned for all of that. Here, a couple of comments coming in. Monica Cervantes, Flaca Jimenez chiming in, RJ as well, and also dropping those likes. We appreciate them over on the page. Juan, Monica Rio, Monica Cervantes, and Flaca Jimenez, because they just help with things. And of course, we got those pound 250 calls that we get to at this point during the show. Again, if you want to leave your message that way, dial pound 250, say Talk El Paso when prompted, or again, through the app if you want to leave the talkback message. But here is the message you can leave this way.
This is Messiah Frankie. I want to share with you some absolutely wonderful news. It has come to my attention that a federal judge has declared that this slimeball John Eastman, some creepy lawyer, has got to turn over all his emails that he shared with that horrible senator of yours, Ted Cancun Crud, relative to the January 6th insurrection sedition stuff. So that tells me that your nutjob senator out there is in deep, deep doo-doo. And I'm so excited about that, to hear that on this Monday. I just want to share that with you all. Thank you.
Again, if you want to leave your own messages on your own topics there, if you got a burning point in between shows here, essentially, pound 250, keyword Talk El Paso, that one was left, but you can leave it in the same kind of fashion or on the talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app here. And sure, Ted Cruz did something involving January 6th, probably should be investigated, but only support the actual completion of these investigations, among other things, because this whole speculation in the meantime, a lot of you, well, what people see in it is more telling than almost anything about the evidence that is being presented, and I'll just say that here. But appreciate anyone who has tuned in, been a part of the show, chimed in. Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Flaca Jimenez, do appreciate y'all chiming in here as part of the show here, including what belongs in rivers, only fish and ducks. But we'll have to leave it there for today because we're out of time here for this program. So again, thanks to everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Really, what y'all do helps make the show what it is. Otherwise, I'd just be in a room talking with myself, and don't need a radio for that. So in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a good one.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard northbound at Cassidy, a stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder. An accident reported Sean Haggerty eastbound at Gateway North. Watch out for an injury accident Hercules at Dyer. You can use 54 Gateway as an alternate around it. And a crash Montana Avenue eastbound before Yarborough. Edgemere Boulevard can be your alternate there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Help DEA keep our community safe and healthy by participating in National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, Saturday, April 30th. Take action right in your own home by cleaning out your family medicine cabinet of unneeded medications. Keep them safe, clean them out, take them back. To find a collection site near you, visit DEATakeback.com. Do your part to lower overdose deaths and prevent prescription drug misuse before it starts. Visit DEATakeback.com. That's DEATakeback.com.
New on Curiosity Stream. The way we fight wars is changing. Every technological leap redraws the battle lines. How will war be waged in the decades to come? See what lies ahead in the limited series, Future Warfare. And uncover the influence of European cities on the greatest musical compositions ever written in the captivating series, Classical Destinations. It's all on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.